Dramily.com, unlimited drama series.
The text message that destroyed my marriage came while I was elbow deep in a broken furnace at 3 in the morning. Family trip this weekend. Dad's idea. You'll LOV it. My wife Sarah had a gift for making terrible news sound like Christmas morning. I wiped grease off my hands with a shop rag and stared at my phone screen, already knowing this weekend would be hell wrapped in forced family bonding. I'm Tom Haywood, 38 years old, and I fix heating and cooling systems for a living. It's honest work that keeps people comfortable, which is more than I can say for my in-laws. Sarah's father, Arthur Brennan, is the kind of man who thinks money makes him interesting and cruelty makes him funny. Her brother Jake is a social media parasite who documents every moment of his privileged life for strangers on the internet. Another family adventure, I muttered, finishing up the furnace repair. The elderly homeowner had been without heat for 6 hours during a February cold snap. These were the calls that mattered. Real people with real problems that I could actually solve. Unlike my marriage, Sarah was already asleep when I got home at 4:30. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Pack warm clothes. Cabin trip. Dad says it'll toughen you up. Can't wait. XOXO. The exclamation points felt like tiny knives. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat at the kitchen table, staring at that note. Arthur had been making comments about toughening me up for years. According to him, I was too soft, too working class, too everything that wasn't him. Sarah usually defended me, but lately, those defenses had become weaker and less frequent. The next morning, Sarah bounced around the house like a caffeinated cheerleader, packing bags and chattering about family time. I watched her stuff designer winter gear into a suitcase that cost more than most people's monthly rent. This is exactly what we need, she said, not looking at me. Quality time with family. Dad's been planning this for weeks. Has he now? I loaded my own bag with practical clothes, thermal underwear, wool socks, work boots that could handle actual outdoor conditions. And where exactly are we going? The cabin. You know, the one Dad bought last year, up in Wisconsin? It'll be perfect for bonding. The cabin. Arthur's latest trophy purchase, a rustic retreat that probably cost more than my house and came fully equipped with all the modern conveniences wealthy people needed to feel outdoorsy. Who else is coming? I asked, though I already suspected. Just family. Me, you, Mom, Dad, Jake, and Greg. Greg Turner, of course. Sarah's childhood friend who'd conveniently divorced his wife 6 months ago and had been sniffing around ever since. Greg sold luxury real estate and drove a BMW that he probably leased to impress clients. He was everything Arthur wished I was, smooth, successful, and completely full of shit. Greg's family now? I asked. Sarah's cheeks flushed slightly. He's been Dad's friend for 20 years, you know that. What I knew was that Greg had been texting my wife at odd hours, and Sarah had been guarding her phone like it contained nuclear launch codes. What I knew was that she'd started working late more often, going to work events that never seemed to involve her actual coworkers. What I knew was that my marriage was circling the drain, and this family trip felt like a setup. But I packed my bag anyway. We met at Arthur's house Saturday morning. The plan was to drive up in 2 vehicles, Arthur's massive SUV with him, his wife Linda, and Greg, while Sarah, Jake, and I took Sarah's car. The weather forecast called for snow, but Arthur waved off my concerns about driving conditions. Little snow never hurt anyone, he said, clapping me on the shoulder hard enough to bruise. Besides, this is about building character. You could use some. Greg laughed at that, a practice sound that made my teeth itch. He was wearing outdoor gear that still had tags on it, the kind of expensive costume that screamed, "I bought this outfit yesterday." Tom's got plenty of character, Sarah said, but her defense sounded automatic, like she was reading from a script she'd memorized years ago. The drive started badly and got worse. Jake spent the entire time live streaming from the passenger seat, narrating our trip for his followers, like we were heading to Everest Base Camp instead of a heated cabin with Wi-Fi. Sarah drove in silence, checking her phone at every red light. This is going to be epic, Jake announced to his phone camera. Family bonding time. Dad's got some surprises planned. Something cold settled in my stomach. Arthur Brennan's surprises were never pleasant, at least not for me. We stopped for gas about 3 hours into the drive, at a truck stop in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. The snow was coming down harder now, fat flakes that stuck to the windshield and made the road ahead look uncertain. I went inside to buy coffee and use the restroom, leaving Sarah and Jake in the car. The gas station was one of those places that existed purely for necessity. Harsh fluorescent lights, coffee that tasted like it was brewed with motor oil, and a clerk who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I bought 4 coffees and a bag of beef jerky, thinking we might need the extra caffeine for whatever Arthur had planned. When I walked back outside 5 minutes later, both vehicles were gone. I stood in the falling snow, holding 4 cups of coffee, staring at the empty parking spaces where our cars had been. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. I walked to where Sarah's car had been parked, looking for signs that I'd somehow gotten confused about the location. Nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. LOL, Dad's idea. Family prank. Find your own way home. Send. Then Jake chimed in on the group chat. Bet he cries. This is hilarious. Arthur's contribution. Time to see what you're made of, son. Real men don't need rides. Greg added. Character building. Hen. Volkst, even Linda got in on it. Don't be mad, Tom. It's all in good fun. I stood there in the snow, 300 miles from home, holding 4 cups of gas station coffee, reading messages from people I'd just spent 3 hours driving with. People who'd planned this. People who'd discussed abandoning me at a truck stop in the middle of a snowstorm and decided it would be funny. My wife had left me stranded in a blizzard for laughs. The coffee was getting cold in my hands, but I barely felt it. Something was crystallizing in my chest. Something hard and sharp and absolutely clear. They wanted to see what I was made of. They were about to find out. I walked back into the gas station and threw the coffee in the trash. The clerk looked up from his magazine. Everything okay, buddy? Just getting started, I said, pulling out my phone. If they wanted to play games, we'd play games, but we'd play by my rules. The first call I made was to Big Mike's Towing. Mike had pulled me out of ditches before, and he was the kind of guy who understood that sometimes you needed help, no questions asked, cash up front. Tom? Jesus, where are you? It's Saturday afternoon. Stranded at a truck stop on Highway 51, I said, watching the snow pile up on the windshields of abandoned cars. I need a ride to the nearest car rental place, and I need it fast. I'll pay triple your usual rate. Triple? What's the emergency? Family emergency, I said, which was technically true. Can you do it or not? Give me 40 minutes. The second call was to my buddy Pete, who ran a small construction company and had a talent for creative problem solving. Pete, I need a favor, a big one. What kind of favor requires calling me during a snowstorm on Saturday? The kind that involves my in-laws thinking they're smarter than they actually are. You remember Arthur Brennan? Pete's laugh was sharp and knowing. Your wife's asshole father? What did he do now? I explained the situation while pacing inside the gas station. The clerk had given up pretending to read his magazine and was openly eavesdropping. Probably the most entertainment he'd had all week. So they just left you there? Pete asked. In a snowstorm? Apparently it's character building. Jesus Christ, Tom. That's not a prank, that's abandonment. What do you want to do about it? I want to teach them about character, real character, the kind that comes with consequences. Pete was quiet for a moment. You know where they're going? Arthur's cabin in Wisconsin. I've been there before. I know the layout, I know the systems, and I know exactly how to make their weekend memorable. I like where this is heading. What do you need? Information. The cabin's address is 1247 Pine Lake Road, Minnequa. I need you to find out everything you can about the property, utilities, access roads, local services. And Pete, I need it fast. Give me an hour. Big Mike showed up in 35 minutes, his tow truck cutting through the snow like it was made for this weather. Mike was built like a linebacker and had the personality of a friendly bear, but his eyes were sharp when he looked at me standing alone in the parking lot. Where's your car? He asked. That's the story, I said, climbing into the warm cab of his truck. My loving family decided to abandon me here as a joke. Mike's expression darkened as I explained. The situation. He'd been married for 25 years and took family loyalty seriously. They left you in this weather? What kind of people do that? The kind who are about to learn a very expensive lesson about consequences. The nearest car rental place was 40 miles away in Wausau. Mike drove like a man on a mission, his truck eating up the snowy highway while I planned my next moves. By the time we reached the rental agency, I had a clear picture of what needed to happen. You sure about this? Mike asked as I paid him in cash. Revenge has a way of getting complicated. Mike, they didn't just leave me stranded. They planned it. They discussed it. They thought it was funny. My own wife thought it was hilarious to abandon me in a snowstorm. I handed him an extra 100. Some things require a response. The rental agency was about to close, but cash and a good credit score opened doors. I rented a black SUV with four-wheel drive and GPS, the kind of vehicle that could handle Wisconsin back roads in February. The clerk, a college kid who probably thought all adults were insane, processed the paperwork with the efficiency of someone who wanted to go home. You driving far in this weather? He asked. Just far enough, I said. Pete called while I was programming the GPS. Got your information. That cabin's a real piece of work. 4 bedrooms, 2 fireplaces, full kitchen, generator backup. Your father-in-law spent serious money on it. What about utilities? Electric heat with a main breaker panel in the basement. Water comes from a well with an electric pump. Phone service is spotty, but there's satellite internet. The access road is private, about a mile long, and it doesn't get plowed unless the owner pays extra. Perfect. What about local services? Nearest grocery store is 20 miles away in town. No pizza delivery, no emergency services closer than 30 minutes in good weather. In this storm, they're on their own. I smiled for the first time all day. Pete, you're a genius. What are you planning, Tom? I'm planning to give them exactly what they gave me, a character-building experience they'll never forget. The drive to the cabin took 2 hours through increasingly heavy snow. The SUV handled well, but I could see why Arthur had been confident about stranding me. This wasn't weather you wanted to be caught in without transportation. I'd been to the cabin twice before, both times for mandatory family gatherings where Arthur could show off his latest acquisition. The place was beautiful in an expensive, soulless way, all rustic charm and modern convenience, designed to make wealthy people feel rugged without actually experiencing discomfort. The cabin sat on a small lake surrounded by pine trees, accessible only by the private road Pete had mentioned. In summer, it was probably picturesque. In the middle of a February blizzard, it looked like the setting for a horror movie. I parked a quarter-mile away and walked the rest of the distance, using a flashlight to navigate the snowy driveway. The cabin was dark. They hadn't arrived yet, probably taking their time, maybe stopping for dinner, enjoying their joke at my expense. Arthur had given me the spare key code during my first visit, back when he was still pretending to like me. He'd probably forgotten, but I remembered everything when it came to my in-laws. Every slight, every insult, every condescending comment was filed away in my memory like evidence in a criminal case. The cabin was exactly as I remembered. Expensive furniture, stone fireplace, kitchen that cost more than most people's cars. Everything designed to impress, nothing designed to last. I moved through the rooms systematically, making mental notes. The main electrical panel was in the basement, clearly labeled and easy to access. I found the breaker for the heating system and flipped it off, then used electrical tape to cover the switch and make it look like a maintenance issue. The heating system would appear to be broken, but anyone with basic electrical knowledge could fix it in 30 seconds. Next, I located the water heater and turned the temperature down to barely lukewarm. Not dangerous, but definitely uncomfortable. I found the main water valve and closed it halfway, reducing water pressure throughout the house. In the kitchen, I gathered all the non-perishable food, canned goods, pasta, rice, anything that would keep them fed and comfortable. I loaded everything into garbage bags and carried it out to my rental SUV. They'd have basic supplies, but nothing easy or convenient. The final touch was the blankets and extra bedding. I collected every spare blanket, pillow, and sheet from the linen closets and packed them away as well. The beds had basic sheets, but nothing extra for warmth. When I was finished, the cabin looked normal at first glance, but every system was compromised. They'd have shelter, but it would be cold, uncomfortable, and frustrating. They'd have water, but not much pressure and no hot showers. They'd have food, but they'd have to work for every meal. I left a single note, taped inside the electrical panel where they'd eventually find it. Hope you're enjoying the character-building experience. No need like Pia. By the time I finished, Snow was falling so heavily, I could barely see the lake. I drove back to town and checked into a small hotel, paying cash and using a fake name. The desk clerk, an older woman with kind eyes, looked concerned. "Terrible night to be driving," she said. "You okay, honey?" "I'm perfect," I said. "Absolutely perfect." From my warm hotel room, I ordered room service and settled in to wait. My phone was buzzing with messages from the family group chat, but I ignored them. Let them wonder where I was. Let them worry. Around midnight, my phone started ringing. Sarah's number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message while eating a perfectly cooked steak. "Tom, where are you? We're at the cabin and something's wrong with the heat. It's freezing in here. Call me back." Alamat. Wavcom. I deleted the message and ordered another bourbon from room service. The real fun was just getting started. I woke up at 7 a.m. to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The family group chat had exploded overnight, and reading through the progression was better than morning coffee. 11:47 p.m. Sarah. "Heat's not working. Tom, call me." 12:15 a.m. Jake.
He texted at 2 a.m. Leave the door unlocked. You left our door unlocked for him?
Once it was
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
This place is freezing. Where's the thermostat? 12:33 a.m. Arthur. Checked the thermostat. System says it's running but no heat coming out. 12:45 a.m. Linda. I can't find any extra blankets. Sarah, where does your father keep them? 1:02 a.m. Greg. Tried the fireplace. Flue is stuck or something. This is ridiculous. 1:18 a.m. Sarah. Tam, call me now. 1:31 a.m. Jake. Water pressure sucks, and it's barely warm. What kind of cabin is this? 1:55 a.m. Arthur. Everyone calm down. I'll figure this out in the morning. 2:22 a.m. Linda. I haven't slept at all. It's like an icebox in here. 2:40 a.m. Mias. Greg. Maybe we should just go home. Mias. 2:41 a.m. Mias. Mountainwom. We're not going anywhere. This is still family time. 3:15 a.m. Sarah. Tom. I know you're getting these messages. This isn't funny anymore. 3:47 a.m. Jake. Found some canned soup, but the can opener is broken. This weekend sucks. I poured myself coffee from the hotel's complimentary breakfast bar and continued reading. The messages got increasingly desperate as the night wore on, culminating in a series of calls to local emergency services that apparently couldn't respond due to the storm. At 8 a.m., I decided to respond. I posted a single message to the group chat, along with a photo of my hotel breakfast: fresh fruit, hot coffee, warm pastries. "Good morning, family. Hope everyone's having a character-building experience. The weather looks rough out there. Stay warm. Say." My phone immediately started ringing. Sarah's number. I answered on the fourth ring. "Tom, where the hell are you?" "I'm having breakfast at a lovely hotel in Wazoo. The room service here is excellent. How's the cabin?" "The cabin is broken. Nothing works. The heat's out. There's no hot water. We can't find any food or blankets, and we're trapped here because of the snow." "That sounds terrible," I said, spreading jam on a croissant. "Have you tried building character? I hear that's very warming." "This isn't funny, Tom. We're freezing." "You know what else isn't funny, Sarah? Abandoning your husband at a truck stop in a blizzard." "But apparently your family found that hilarious." There was silence on the other end. I could hear voices in the background. Arthur shouting something about the electrical panel. Jake complaining about the internet being slow. "That was just a prank," Sarah said finally. "Dad thought it would be good for you. And this is good for all of you. I'm teaching you the same lesson your father tried to teach me. How to handle adversity, how to problem solve, how to build character when everything goes wrong. You did this on purpose. I did exactly what needed to be done. You wanted to see how I'd handle being abandoned? Well, I handled it. I got myself to safety, I found warm shelter, and I made sure I was comfortable. That's what competent adults do when faced with challenges." Arthur's voice came through the phone. He'd grabbed it from Sarah. "Tom, you son of a bitch, what did you do to my cabin?" "Good morning, Arthur. I gave you and your family a wonderful opportunity to experience real character building. Everything you need is there: shelter, water, food. You just have to work a little harder for it. I thought you'd appreciate the challenge. You sabotaged my property. I adjusted a few settings. Nothing permanent, nothing dangerous, just enough to make your weekend as memorable as you intended mine to be. The difference is, I'm not laughing at your discomfort. I'm learning from it. You're going to fix this right now." "Am I?" See, here's the thing, Arthur. You taught me that family members can abandon each other when it's convenient. You taught me that other people's suffering can be entertainment. You taught me that consequences don't matter as long as you're having fun. I'm just applying those lessons. I could hear him breathing heavily, probably turning red the way he did when contractors didn't jump fast enough to his demands. When I get back, you and I are going to have a serious conversation, he said. Looking forward to it. In the meantime, here's some free advice from someone who actually knows how to fix things. Check your electrical panel. The solution to your heating problem is probably simpler than you think. I hung up and immediately posted another photo to the group chat. This one of me relaxing in the hotel's hot tub, steam rising around me in the cold morning air. The hot tub here is amazing, nothing like a warm soak on a cold day. Hope you're all staying cozy. My phone exploded with angry responses, but I was done reading them. I had work to do. The drive back to town took most of the morning. The snow had stopped, but the roads were still treacherous, and I wanted to make sure I was safely home before the family managed to escape their character-building weekend. I stopped at Pete's house on the way. He was in his garage, working on a motorcycle engine, but he looked up when I pulled into his driveway. "And how'd it go?" he asked. "Better than expected. They're getting exactly the education they tried to give me. And you're sure this won't blow back on you?" "Pete, they abandoned me in a snowstorm as a prank. I gave them a weekend of mild inconvenience at a cabin they own, with all the basic necessities available. If anyone asks, I'll be happy to explain the difference." Pete grinned and wiped his hands on a shop rag. "And you know what? I always liked you, Tom, but I think I like you even more now. Most people would have just taken it and complained to their friends later. I'm not most people. No, you're definitely not. What's your next move?" "I'm going home to wait for them. This is just the beginning." The house felt different when I walked in. Cleaner, somehow. Quieter. Sarah's magazines were still scattered on the coffee table. Her coffee cup still sat in the sink from Friday morning. But the space felt like it belonged to me again. I spent the afternoon doing normal weekend things. Laundry, grocery shopping, a little maintenance work on my truck. Ordinary tasks that felt extraordinary because I was doing them without the constant background tension of managing other people's emotions. Around 4 p.m., Pete called. "Turn on Channel 12 News. They're doing a story about the storm, and they mentioned stranded motorists." I found the remote and switched to the local news. The weatherman was showing footage of abandoned cars and closed highways, talking about the dangers of winter travel. Several families reported being stranded at remote locations during the storm, the anchor said. Emergency services remind everyone that winter weather can be deadly, and no one should be left without proper shelter or transportation during severe conditions. Perfect timing. I took a screenshot of the news report and posted it to social media with a simple caption. "Glad the first found safe shelter during the storm. Winter weather is no joke. Stay safe, everyone." Shakes, the responses started immediately. Friends and neighbors expressing concern, asking if I was okay, sharing their own storm stories. I responded to each one, thanking people for their concern and emphasizing how dangerous it had been to be stranded without transportation. Waffles and chips. I didn't mention my family. I didn't have to. Around 6 p.m., my phone rang. Sarah's number again. This time she sounded exhausted. "Tom, we found your note." "Which note?" "The one in the electrical panel. We got the heat working. Congratulations. I knew you could figure it out if you applied yourselves. We're driving home tonight. Drive safely. The roads are still bad." "Shakes. Tom." Her voice cracked slightly. "We need to talk when I get home." "Yes," I said. "We do." But I already knew what that conversation would reveal. While they'd been struggling with broken systems and uncomfortable conditions, I'd been thinking, planning, realizing that this weekend had shown me exactly who these people were and exactly what my marriage had become. The real character building was just beginning. They didn't get home until almost midnight Sunday. I heard Sarah's car in the driveway, heard the muffled voices of tired, frustrated people unloading luggage and arguing about whose fault everything had been. I stayed in the living room, reading a book, letting them deal with their own mess. Sarah came through the front door looking like she'd aged 5 years in 2 days. Her designer winter gear was wrinkled and stained. Her usually perfect hair was flat and greasy, and her eyes had the hollow look of someone who hadn't slept in a real bed. "We need to talk," she said. "I figured we would. How was your character building weekend?" She dropped her bags by the door and stared at me. "You know exactly how it was." "I know you got to experience what I experienced. Being left in an uncomfortable situation, without the resources you expected to have. The difference is, you had shelter, food, water, and each other. I had a truck stop and a blizzard. That was different. How? She opened her mouth, then closed it. We both knew there was no good answer to that question. Your father called it a prank, I continued. He said it would build my character. So I gave all of you the same gift. A character-building experience. Did it work? Do you feel like better people now? Sarah sat down heavily on the couch. Tom, I know you're angry. I'm not angry, Sarah. I'm educated. This weekend taught me everything I needed to know about my marriage and my place in your family. What's that supposed to mean? I closed my book and looked at her directly. It means I know who you really are now, all of you. Over the next few days, the full scope of what had happened began to emerge. Jake had live-streamed parts of their ordeal, complaining to his followers about the broken cabin and worst weekend ever. The videos went viral, but not in the way he'd hoped. Comments ranged from mocking to genuinely concerned about a family that would abandon someone during a winter storm. Arthur called Tuesday morning, his voice tight with controlled rage. Tom, we need to discuss what happened this weekend. I'm listening. You embarrassed my family. Jake's getting roasted online. Linda's upset, and Sarah's been crying for 2 days. And I want to know what you're planning to do about it. Nothing. I'm not planning to do anything about your family's embarrassment. You created this situation when you decided to abandon me in a blizzard for entertainment. Everything that happened after that was a natural consequence of that decision. It was a prank, Tom. You're supposed to be able to take a joke. Arthur, let me explain something to you. I work in people's homes every day. I see real problems: elderly people without heat, families with broken water heaters, kids sleeping in cold bedrooms because their parents can't afford repairs. Those are real hardships. What you call character building is what I call cruelty disguised as humor. You're being dramatic. Am I? You left me stranded 300 miles from home in dangerous weather because you thought it would be funny? I gave you a weekend of mild inconvenience in a cabin you own, with all the basic necessities available. Which one of us is being dramatic? There was a long pause. This isn't over. No, I agreed, it's not. That evening, Sarah and I sat down for the conversation we'd been avoiding. She'd showered and changed clothes, but she still looked exhausted. I want to apologize, she said. The prank was Dad's idea, but I went along with it. That was wrong. Why did you go along with it? Because he said you needed to toughen up, that you were too soft for our family. And you agreed with him? She was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes. The honesty was refreshing, even if it hurt. What else, Sarah? What else do you think I need to know? What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshot I'd taken of her text messages with Greg. I'd found them Sunday morning while she was in the shower, her phone left unlocked on the nightstand. Her face went white. Tom, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you've been texting another man at midnight? Can you explain why you've been meeting him for drinks after work? Can you explain why you told him you were thinking about making changes in your life? It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. She started crying, which was her usual response when confronted with something she couldn't deny or deflect. Greg and I have been talking about life, about relationships, about whether people can change. About whether your husband can change, you mean. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. My family has expectations. Your family has opinions. There's a difference. They think you're not ambitious enough. They think you're holding me back. From what? From the life I could have. I stared at her, this woman I'd been married to for 8 years, and realized I was looking at a stranger. The life you could have with Greg, you mean? I don't know. Maybe. I'm confused, Tom. This weekend made everything worse. This weekend made everything clear. Your family abandoned me because they don't respect me. You went along with it because you don't respect me either. And now you're having an emotional affair with Greg because you think he represents some better version of your life. It's not an affair. Sarah, you're texting another man about leaving your husband. What would you call it? She didn't have an answer for that. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to decide what you want. If you want to work on this marriage, then you cut all contact with Greg. You establish boundaries with your family, and we go to counseling. If you want the life your family thinks you should have, then we get divorced and you can pursue whatever makes you happy. You're giving me an ultimatum? I'm giving you a choice, the The same choice your family gave me at that truck stop. Figure out what you're made of. She cried harder, but I didn't comfort her. I'd spent 8 years managing her emotions, smoothing over conflicts with her family, making myself smaller so she could feel bigger. I was done. I need time to think, she said finally. Take all the time you need, but understand that I'm done being the problem in your family's story. I'm done being the husband who isn't good enough, ambitious enough, wealthy enough for the Brennans. I'm done pretending that your father's cruelty is just his sense of humor. Where does that leave us? That depends entirely on what you decide you want. She went to bed early, claiming a headache. I stayed up late, making plans and thinking about the future. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my own life. The next morning, Sarah was gone when I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Staying at Mom and Dad's for a few days. Need space to think. I crumpled up the note and threw it away. Then I called Pete. How do you feel about helping me with a little project? I asked. What kind of project? The kind that teaches people about consequences. I'm listening. Sarah's moved in with her parents temporarily. Greg's been sniffing around, thinking he's going to swoop in and save her from her terrible marriage. I think it's time everyone learned what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. What do you need? Information. Financial information, personal information, professional information. I want to know everything there is to know about Greg Turner and the Brennan family finances. That's going to take some digging. I've got time. And Pete, I've got money. Real money. I've been saving for 8 years, living below my means while Sarah spent everything on keeping up with her family's lifestyle. It's time to put that money to work. This is getting serious, Tom. It got serious when they left me in a snowstorm for laughs. Everything since then has just been education. Bye.